You're listening to Themes and Memes, a different kind of movie review. My name is Adam, and with me here I have my co-host Aaron. How you doing, Aaron?
Very good. It's great to be back again talking to you, Adam.
Yeah, it certainly is. So, as listeners are probably aware, last month we did a review of the new season of The X-Files, season 10, and we had brought on our friend Tom Secker from Spy Culture to look at that. But prior to that, we'd actually skipped a month because we weren't able to, convene to do a recording. So we're going to do a couple of recordings this month to make up for that. We're going to do a few shorter ones, and just to keep things interesting, we actually
doing something a little different, aren't we?
Yeah, we're gonna do a special Themes and Memes review of the film Talladega Nights.
Out of left field.
The Ballad of Ricky Bobby with Will Ferrell.
Listeners would have never guessed this.
Yeah, take that.
Yeah,
Get out of left field. So this is another stupid, kind of lowest common denominator comedy film. So it's 2006. Is that right?
Yes, 2006.
Yep, 2006. And it's part of it's kind of a part of a series, an informal series that Will Ferrell did. What was it called again? It was the Mediocre American Man trilogy. So it goes with Anchorman and Anchorman 2, which were the more popular ones, and obviously most people are familiar with those films because they're incredibly popular.
Yeah.
So this one is the second one. So you had Anchorman, then you had Talladega Nights, then you had Anchorman 2, and that constitutes the Mediocre American Man trilogy with Will Ferrell and like the usual culprits, like John C. Reilly.
John C. Reilly, yeah. I do like John C. Reilly, I gotta say, but
I do.
Yeah, he's good. But in this movie, he can only be so good, I feel. In this movie.
Yeah. This is one of many comedy films in this vein of this type, which feature people like Will Ferrell, John C. Reilly. You got like Steve Carell, Vince Vaughn, like Ben Stiller, Owen Wilson, Adam Sandler. They're not all in this film, but it's that type of film.
A genre.
It's a genre, yeah.
This was produced by Apatow, Judd Apatow. This one. Do you know if Anchorman was Apatow as well? Because I can't remember.
I don't. You know what? I'm just going to look it up. So
I'll bet that it was, because this style of comedy is distinct, and Judd Apatow, you can kind of.
Yep.
It was, right?
There we go. Yeah, so it was it's the same director as well. So
Adam McKay.
Adam McKay. So we've got the same trio here. We've got Will Ferrell, Judd Apatow, and Adam McKay doing this trilogy on the mediocrity of the American male.
They use the same character actors too. The same actors are always in these all across the board. Yeah, it's definitely a group of people doing this.
Yeah, you get these little groups working together on sort of little threads, I suppose, within comedy, and so like I was saying before. Yeah. This is definitely a subgenre. This is what I'm trying to say. And it's, again, so much like so many other films of this kind of caliber, and they're all coming out, I found, sort of like beginning of the 2000s. Like 2000 to 2005, 2010. That kind of that first 10 years, it seemed to be like a whole lot of these types of films. Again,
yeah, you're right. Right about 2000, this kicked off. That sounds accurate to me. Yeah, definitely. I think
the first one in its series, I feel, was probably Zoolander with Ben Stiller and Owen Wilson, and then you had
that came out in 2001. I know it did, because it came out. That was the first comedy that came out after September 11th, 2001.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I think you're right,
and it tanked because of that, because nobody was ready to laugh yet.
Yeah,
that's one of the reasons.
So there was this. What else was? Oh yeah, Meet the Fockers. That was another big one, wasn't it?
Yeah, one of the CIA films.
Yeah, Robert De Niro plays the CIA guy. Mm-hmm. It's. I'm sure people know what we're talking about here in terms of like the subgenre, the kind of thread that this film fits into in terms of these particular types of comedies.
It's got Will Ferrell running around in his underwear on a racetrack.
Yep.
Those are jokes.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Like, what was that other one when they all go back to high school or something? What's it called?
Oh, a movie where
Yeah, it's like Will Ferrell.
Old School.
It's the whole
Old
crew.
School.
Old School. Yeah.
Yeah, they're
it's
in college.
It's basically old. Yeah, it's old school. That's what it is. Old school with race cars. You know? So,
gosh.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting that you mentioned that this subgenre came out circa 2000, Adam, because I have all sorts of weird little things in this film that I'm going to bring up to you and see what you think about it. And the year 2000 is significant because that is the year that the presidency of George W. Bush began. Okay? So an era, as it were, a presidential era, and very important in terms of conspiracy theory. Okay?
Yeah.
And in 2006, when this film came out, me personally, I was like kind of new in the conspiracy realm, but I was like head first into it. I was like, everything was conspiracy. I was thinking along those lines. And I saw this movie around when it came out, and I interpreted a lot of what happened in the movie as through the lens of 2006 conspiracy theory, popular conspiracy theory at the time. And so, with that in mind, I will mention that, let's see here, Will Ferrell, his most famous impersonation from Saturday Night Live is George W. Bush, right?
Very interesting. Just quickly, I did actually take note of that because I felt that the character and Ricky Bobby was actually channeling George Bush a little bit, George H.W. So that's it. I feel, that's exactly what I thought, and that's cool because, the way I see it is Ricky Bobby is George W. Bush in this. And it's an extension of his George W. Bush impersonation that not only encompasses George W. Bush and is a representation of him, but it's also a representation of his political base. Yep. And the NASCAR fan being the political base being the equivalent. So they're equating NASCAR and everything that it is, and the fans, the people who like NASCAR, to the people who like George W. Bush and everything that his presidency was about. Follow me? Yeah, no, I absolutely follow you. In fact, that's very, very similar to the lines I'm thinking along with this film. But, continue if you have...
Yeah, so, it's basically... I'm fairly certain that the filmmakers were intentional in this and going, we're going to have this be George W. Bush, an extension of that, and really not only skewer George W. Bush, and not even so much that, but skewer America as a whole, and what America became under the administration of George W. Bush, with its foreign policy, all its silliness. Like, you had, during that time, you had the neocon drive to all these foreign wars in the Middle East. You had all that going on. And you had the George W. Bush supporters just gung-ho about it, going, yeah. And at one point, there was this time where those folks got really mad at France because France wouldn't join in with the war effort. So we had all this crap like freedom fries and all that kind of silliness.
Right.
And this is just definitely the filmmakers were trying to mock and satire the goofballs who were supporting the neocons. So basically right-wing Americana.
Yeah. This is almost exactly my take on the film, and that films like this, especially comedies, are really, the plot, and actually all the details, the fact that it's about this racing car drive. that stuff's all immaterial. It's dispensable. It's of no real consequence. The real meat and potatoes, the substance of this film it's a morality play. It's a contemporary morality play, and what it is really is like total deconstruction and mockery of conservative middle-class American culture, Oh, yeah. So again, like Anchorman and Anchorman 2 and like so many other films, it's a mockery of, a particular like cultural demographic and all of the aspirations, of that cultural demographic, all of the value systems and beliefs. So, yeah. it's just a total deconstruction of that. And we can get into like, why all that is. If we look at all the different roles and all the archetypes and the kind of values and messages that are being put across and the kind of ideological dialectics that are being carried through. So, yeah, I mean, there's a strong use of maybe not strong, but there's shock tactics in there, I think, on a few occasions, and kind of this risque humor, where they sort of introduce something really kind of out of left field or quite overt or explicit in your face just quite suddenly to try to break down those boundaries and get you to laugh. So yeah. I think they're really this was a really concerted effort to completely ridicule. I would almost say, not just conservative American middle-class culture, but kind of, like middle-class culture in general in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Totally. Totally.
Middle-class aspirations.
Because everybody was going along with the administration, as it were. Everybody was complicit in America's foreign policy at the time. And everybody kind of just like, you got the extreme left always criticizing the freedom fries stuff going on. But for the most part, people are just like, George Bush is good, terrorism is bad, so we got to be tough on it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. And, to a degree, this stuff is to be expected and fair. It's almost fair because it is a comedy film, and comedy it's supposed to be about, like slaughtering the sacred cows, ridiculing the social norms, just making a mockery of all the established kind of values in a society or a culture. But, if we're being totally objective about this, it's really interesting to look at just how far it goes and what kind of messages and conclusions the audience is drawn towards through the comedic effect. So, yeah.
Indeed. And now get ready for the conspiracy bomb, Adam. I'm going to lay it on you here.
Okay.
This is an extension of the whole, like, hating the French freedom fries phenomenon going on. The character Jean Girad, which is played by prankster and goofball Sacha Baron Cohen in this movie, he's a Frenchman, right? And he drives this Perrier NASCAR. So that's the sponsor of his NASCAR. Now, I am pretty sure that this character is meant to be a representation of Jeff Gordon, who is a popular NASCAR driver, because there's sort of the same air around Jeff Gordon where he was like seen as a pretty boy, this guy that real NASCAR fans didn't like, pretty boy, I don't like him, that sort of deal. Like the real NASCAR fans didn't like Jeff Gordon. However, Jeff Gordon was really good. He won a lot of races. And then as a result, like some people actually became fans just because he was so good. Same thing happens with his Jean Girad character. Now, onto the conspiracy theory element of this is that Jeff Gordon famously drove the car with the sponsor DuPont. So it said DuPont on his hood, and everybody remembers that. Oh yeah, Jeff Gordon DuPont. What's DuPont? Well, it's an automotive paint subsidiary company of DuPont Chemical, right? And what's DuPont Chemical? It's a big company of the DuPont family. Started in, 1802 as a gunpowder company. Then on through the years got into the chemicals. And DuPont, of course, is this aristocratic Illuminati bloodline family. If you're talking conspiracy theory, they're very important American industrialist family. They're French, right? They're French.
Right,
they started up the company with French money, so DuPont is a French company, Frenchmen running it. So it's a French thing. And Jeff Gordon drove the DuPont car. In this movie, you've got the Frenchman driving the Perrier car, kind of embodying Jeff Gordon, I would say. So I think that's what's going on. I may be reaching on that one there, but I think that's what they're trying to do with this. I don't know.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that particular angle because I'm not really that familiar with like the real world of NASCAR. I think living in America, you probably just see this stuff on television and you're familiar with it. I mean, I wouldn't know anything about that type of stuff. But I mean, to get back to, I guess to get back to like some of the, I guess, moral type of themes that are portrayed in this comedy. so you've got this. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll do kind of my little outline of both characters here and the kind of dialectic that's put across, because you've got like the traditional kind of hero front runner character, which is the Will Ferrell, Ricky Bobby character. He's the typical kind of archetype, success, money, fame, happiness, all that type of stuff. And so they sort of establish that archetype, but then tear it down by presenting him as being like Southern, Midwestern Christian. He's from, is it Texas? Is that where it is?
I think North Carolina. So
is
the
it?
South.
Okay.
That's the South.
Well, the South. That's the South. Mm-hmm. But they do make references to Texas. Like he's called his kids Walker and Texas Ranger.
Yeah, that's right.
So I mean, there's another little kind of, I don't know. It's kind of a little dig at Bush there, I felt, with that, because it's a reference to Texas, and then Walker, like this, real kind of conservative, no nonsense man. And so, again, I kind of felt that the actual character of Ricky Bobby was almost channeling George Bush, which fits in with what we talked about before. But he's still a nice guy. So we've got the sort of underdog archetype happening there as well. And his kind of aspirations have to do with like kind of a corrupted, extreme kind of corporate version of working class aspirations. Like I don't know. I kind of call it like commercial Christianity. It's Christianity without any of the real kind of I don't know, purity. So that they say the prayers and thank Jesus for all their material goods,
Coca-Cola
and Coca-Cola, and all that.
All the ads in this movie. And they've got the big themes of patriotism coming through. So there's American flags everywhere. It's God save America and America's great. And so that material abundance, of course, because he's rich, and he's got the trophy wife as well. So he's got the sexual abundance too. And then on the flip side, we've got the competition coming in. So like the antagonist, who is, as you said, the Sacha Baron Cohen character, who for a foreign land from those goddamn frog-eating freaks. Well, he's a homosexual. Oof.
Well, yeah.
That's a no-no.
So he's gay. He's not just gay. He's very gay. Very camp.
The top.
Completely over the top, as both these characters are. So the presentation of the character is always the absolute extreme of everything. Which is to be expected in comedy, but that's part of the comedic kind of process, which I'll get into. But so he's cultured, he's educated, he's much more disciplined as well. So he's almost presented as being a more deserving champion because he's kind of supposed to be disciplined and hardworking and focused, whereas Ricky Bobby is kind of like delusional, kind of like benefiting from dumb luck, completely uneducated, etc. So and he of course aspires to, like, I suppose more cultured kind of aspirations, intellectual pursuits and sophisticated interests. Shows him
reading a philosophy book while reading.
Yeah, he's reading like about existentialism when he's racing his car and he's drinking a macchiato. So, yeah, it's totally ridiculous, to completely take it to the extreme. So, this kind of fits in with this, again, this mocking of what one would usually consider to be normal aspirations, conventional, traditional, and I suppose especially in this case, conservative middle-class American aspirations. So you've got the guy who's got it all, the guy who meets all of those criteria and who's achieved all those things in life, being a total idiot.
Yeah.
And you've got the guy who, and then on the other hand, you've got the guy who is the opposite of all those things, who's gay, who's camp, who's sophisticated and cultured, who wears a beret and listens to jazz, being the kind of, the nemesis of all of that. But actually being more successful than him. So again, we've got the whole concept of sort of normal archetypes being turned on their head, in line with the kind of this trilogy that this film is part of, the mediocrity of the American man, so it's kind of tearing down all that type of stuff. And I suppose, to continue here, you've also got, I suppose, what you might call sort of inverted roles and behavior within the family. So we look at Ricky Bobby's family, And of course, this is all taken to the extreme again, but and this is all, again, very, very common and pretty much, I would almost say most like popular American comedy. If not that, then at least this type of genre, the subgenre of comedy. And so you've got children who are rude, they're foul-mouthed, unruly, lacking in innocence. You've got a wife who is kind of flaky, sexually inappropriate, and completely narcissistic. You've got a father, the Ricky Bobby character who's juvenile, irresponsible, and a decidedly bad role model. Then you've got the father-in-law who's like introverted, downtrodden, lacking any wisdom. And then you've got Ricky's own parents, which are like, his dad's like a deadbeat alcoholic, and his mother's actually probably the only stable character in this. Yeah. She's kind of like a no-nonsense Christian with solid kind of morals and stuff like that. So, we're looking at, I suppose, the reversal or the inversion of what you normally consider to be functionality and convention within a kind of a family or moral social setting, if you will.
Ricky Bobby could be called an anti-hero.
An anti-hero. Yeah, I suppose you could say that.
Of sorts.
Yeah. Yes, it is. Yeah. So, I mean, what did you have anything to say about these types of themes? Because, I mean, I could just keep going here. I've got a lot of notes on this.
I have a few things to add in on that note, yeah.
Okay.
Just real quick, I want to add in another little thing that I think they're using as a symbolic device was Ricky Bobby's sponsor on his car is Wonder Bread. And that's, of course, like the most famous white bread that there is. And I think that's sort of a play on words in that Ricky Bobby is white bread. You know what I mean? Like white bread Americana. Well, like some NASCAR and sure shit like George W. Bush. Bomb them all. You know what I mean? So that's what they're joking on here. This white bread Americana, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
Know. So that's just a little detail. And then of course he's got the sponsors all over everything, and there's so much going on with that. I don't even know where to begin.
A lot of product placement.
Oh my gosh, yes. And with the producers of the film, they're at once mocking that, and that's what NASCAR is all about, and that's what kind of like right-wing America is all about, is serving corporate interests. So they're mocking that. Like, look at this dumb NASCAR idiot. He's eating KFC in his McMansion, and he thinks that's a feast. But at the same time, they're playing into it because those are real ads. It's real product placement. So it makes you go like, okay, you may be like, this might be social critique, but you're doing the exact same thing. So what does that mean?
Yeah, that is interesting. So much product placement, and as you say, that there are a number of instances like this where the real world and the sort of fictional world meet. So I think they actually bring on real NASCAR drivers. It's a little
Dale Earnhardt Jr. was definitely in there. Yeah.
Okay. So they've got real NASCAR drivers, and they've got real corporate sponsors.
Yeah.
And so they're taking the piss out of all that stuff. And as you said, it's kind of a critique, but it's still there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of that, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely degenerate sort of characters. Again, it's a critique on America itself and America under George W. Bush. This is George W. Bush, but more so it's the public that loves him. Definitely. I mean, without a doubt, that's going on. They hate the French. They're homophobic. There's a lot of homoerotic overtones in this film too.
Oh man,
over the top. Yeah. It's ridiculous.
I know it is. And this I feel is part of the critique, part of the mockery of this type of film, and especially this particular film. Is it's all about presenting this set of social norms, what has been established in a certain cultural demographic as a positive social norm or as an accepted set of social behaviors and values. And so, on the surface, it's all very, it's like family values. It's about Christianity. It's about conservatism. But really, this film is presenting all of that as being a complete lie. They're being totally dysfunctional, completely hypersexual, bigoted, homophobic, all this stuff. So it's, again, comedy's always going to do that. But if we're being totally objective, it's really interesting to look at just what messages are presented and what kinds of ideas are really tipped on their head throughout the process of this film. Because I feel that this is what a comedy film like this is really all about. I mean, the details are irrelevant, really. I mean, they could have put a film like this in any setting. They could have had any kind of plot devices they wanted. But the real substance of the film is all about behavior and values. And so, I mean, just to move on with some of these notes here. So you sort of outline these two characters, the protagonist, antagonist, sort of whether you want to call him an anti-hero or whatever. And then we've got the kind of the family roles as well. And then you've got the family culture, which is it's chaotic. It's inappropriate. Like it's sexually inappropriate. Like the parents are kind of like the parents are sexually explicit in front of the children, and the children are kind of participating in commentary. You know what I mean? Like about how mum is hot and this kind of stuff. It's almost borderline incestuous in a way. You know, at least on an emotional, social kind of a level. And then
you've got the best friend who eventually comes in and takes the same wife right out from under him just because he becomes more successful instantly. So and that kind of ties back into the homoerotic thing as well. So it's all these weird things kind of tie into one another.
They do. It's an interesting thread with the John C. Reilly character, because he's very much the underdog in the film. He is he's Ricky's best friend. He's always been number two. Ricky takes it for granted. Kind of just
he's like his lapdog. He does favors for him, and Ricky doesn't care.
Yeah, he's like his little bitch, really.
Yeah, exactly.
But as we were saying, so Ricky Bobby has a crash. I think, is it? Yeah, he has a crash or something, which means that the John C. Reilly character is it Cal Naughton? Is it
Cal Naughton Jr.?
Cal Naughton Jr. Yeah. So he ends up winning the race, and because he's now the winner and he's getting all the attention and he's in the spotlight, of course, Ricky Bobby's wife leaves him. She's just like, "Oh, you can't win races. I'm not interested," and she just walks out and hooks up with his best friend.
Yeah, immediately, and they live in the same house.
They live in the house.
So stupid.
Yeah,
but again, comedy.
Yeah, again, comedy. so it's funny in some ways, but it's also a real, I don't know.
Yeah, it's real satire pointing out real things. Like, there are people like that. There are trophy wives who will leave you in a heartbeat, and they would go and marry your best friend, and if they could, live in the same house immediately like that. So, it's a play on that. And then, get the homoerotic weirdness that's going on in real life, too. So, it's all real stuff.
Yeah, it absolutely is. So I'm just looking at where to go next here with this, because I had a whole bunch of kind of themes that all tie in.
There's this, if it's okay, Adam, I'd like to just go back to the whole George W. Bush and sort of political angle. Is it okay if we go back to that?
Yeah. Let's do that.
This is toward the end of the movie. There's this character who is he runs the company that owns Ricky Bobby's car, and he kind of owns a few different NASCARs, right? And he's at a race, and he's meeting with all these big investors. He says, all these big investors are coming. If things work out, they could have us and our company buying half of the NASCARs in the whole circuit. And you go, okay, so it's a big business deal. And who do those investors end up being? They end up being representatives from DynCorp and Halliburton. You remember that part, Adam?
I did not notice that.
You missed that?
Detail. I know the scene you're talking about, but I didn't notice the actual detail there. Halliburton, huh?
Yeah, DynCorp and Halliburton were the executives who came in. And the guy says, we'll be able to own half a NASCAR if these guys hop on board with us. I mean, that says it all right there. I mean, these are both the scandals of these companies. You had the child prostitution ring being the big scandal that both companies were involved in. You've got the Bush administration being tied back to that in so many different ways. So it's definitely a critique of that. There's even this extra throwaway line afterwards that the business guy starts in, he goes, Halliburton, that stock's doing good, isn't it? I wish I could have, he's like, I wish I could have some of that or something. So clearly a jab at George W. Bush and more, I think. More than just that.
Oh, look. Well, yeah, it's a jab at the political the sort of political and financial establishment.
Yes,
like
financial.
George Bush era.
Very much.
Of that era, I suppose. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it's weird. You wouldn't think of like those companies which are like military contractors coming in and being involved in NASCAR, and yet when you think about it a little more, it's like, well, it kind of makes sense. And here's a weird thing I'll throw in that ties back to the DuPont car, actually, that's sort of related. It's from 2013, so it's like after this movie actually happened, but ties back to the weird conspiracy theory I had. The Jeff Gordon car, the DuPont car, the DuPont paint division ended up getting bought out by the Carlyle Group. And they rebranded and changed the name DuPont. So this is a big to-do. Oh, Jeff Gordon's car isn't DuPont anymore. It's some other name. And it was Carlyle Group that, it was because of them buying out the DuPont paint company. This happened. So it's kind of a tie back between a similar organizations and NASCAR. So it's kind of like, okay, I guess that's sort of in the real world that happens at least to an extent.
Yeah. Well, I think the reason that these types of themes have been woven into the film is because there are probably a lot of real world tie-ins to the kind of the corporate structure of NASCAR, and the corporate structure of NASCAR and how that is tied back into this particular political establishment of the era, and all the kind of cultural reference points that you would find throughout that kind of, I don't know, scene, I suppose. Yeah, totally. So,
because who are the companies on the cars? You know what I mean? That's like,
well, there we go. It's all big
big investment companies.
Yeah, big investment companies, and if not military industrial companies, at least big industrial companies, which would have links and contracts with even bigger companies. So
the kinds of groups that the neocons are definitely a part of.
Yeah, exactly. This type of thing. So oil industry,
Mm-hmm.
Investment.
So clearly with DynCorp and Halliburton coming in this scene, I mean that's for me where I knew that yes, they're cracking on George W. Bush. They're attempting to make some sort of political and social commentary. At the same time, like, this film is so ridiculous and stupid, it's hard to know exactly what they're trying to say, you know what I mean?
Well, I felt that it was about, as per the fact that this is a morality play and that it's a mockery of conservative values. I think that it was a kind of an introduction to a different value system. So it's I felt almost as if this was like an attempt to kind of break down social prejudices and barriers. Because if we look at the kind of course of the film, I've outlined the two characters before, the Ricky Bobby character and the Sacha Baron Cohen character,
Jean
gay
Girad.
French driver, Jean Girard.
Yeah, Jean Girard.
Or Pepe Le Pew, as they call him in the film. We've got this, this I guess someone who one would assume to be homophobic in the Ricky Bobby character, making overtly homophobic kind of jabs and digs at this character, and sort of banding about his traditional Midwestern American culture. And so I really felt that in a lot of ways this was about sort of breaking down prejudice and introducing issues like I don't know, like I suppose gay rights or something.
At least acceptance, but
acceptance,
by the right wing and the NASCAR crowd, which was that was a tall order. You know what I mean? So
so acceptance, with that kind of cultural demographic there, because they start out in the beginning of the film being very kind of very entrenched in their own conservative culture. But then that culture is shown to be completely dysfunctional, completely sexually inappropriate anyway, and so they're kind of moral high ground's taken away from underneath them, and then throughout that process, and through the kind of plot devices of the film relating to loss and stuff like that, he eventually has to come to accept that, the Sacha Baron Cohen character isn't that bad, and being gay isn't so bad, and of course this is all capped off by the grand finale when they have that race and they crash the cars and they're running down the racetrack to try and beat each other to the finish line, and the Sacha Baron Cohen character looks to Ricky Bobby and says, can I shake your hand? And Ricky's like, no, you can't shake my hand, but I'll give you a kiss. And he just gives them this enormous, big, long, passionate kiss. Yeah. So you've got a scene with two guys in a NASCAR event, getting it on the racetrack in front of everybody, So it was the most unexpected.
And of course, a complete 180 from where you started at the beginning. It's like,
this is it.
What is this?
This is the 180, and this is kind of the crux of where I was going with my notes, because you see this in a lot of other ways. Again, and it's kind of an inversion of the traditionally accepted or perceived views of this cultural sort of demographic, Yeah. And I mean, it's actually there's a particular technique that's actually used to do this. I looked this up a while ago, and I've only just kind of refamiliarized with myself with it recently, because it's quite difficult to kind of read up on. But it's called the Sabido Method, and it's by a social psychologist. And there's a number of guys who do very similar things and have written similar papers on this type of stuff. But it's a social psychologist. I think he's from Mexico. And to cut a long story short and put it in a nutshell, it's really about the presentation of certain social norms, and it's to do with extremes, and it's to do with taking the audience, and it's specifically to do with TV serials and things, but also movies. It's to do with taking the audience through a process of moral re-identification through drama. So you will present one extreme, then you'll present, so the audience is encouraged to identify with that character.
Yeah, the main character, the protagonist, is extreme in this way.
Yeah, exactly.
The other extreme comes along to challenge that.
Yep.
And then the challenging extreme ends up winning out, and so the audience is taken along for the ride.
That's it. You got it, man. That's pretty much it. I mean, there's a whole sort of set of techniques and methods that get into exactly how that can be done with different kind of archetypes. And there's about 4 or 5 different key characters that they can use in this process. But really, what it is about is that it's about getting to identify with one extreme, which presents what they call a positive social norm, and then having the other extreme come in with the negative social norm, and then through the process of the film or TV show, you've got a debate back and forth. The one is the strengths of one become the weaknesses of the other, or what have you. That the roles kind of reverse. You're not quite so sure who you might identify with, and ultimately, towards the end of the film, you end up coming to a place of identification with perhaps if not the opposite extreme, at least a more moderate opposite, if you will. You know what I mean? So if you were sort of morally opposed to something at the beginning of the film, then yes, you would be morally accepting of it toward the end.
Very interesting. And I'm always wondering, to what extent do the Judd Apatows and even the Will Ferrells know about this sort of social psychology, and are being eggheads about it and actually putting these practices to use willfully, or are they just kind of doing this by accident? You know what I mean? Yeah,
that's a difficult question. It's hard to say. I mean, on the face of it, I mean, if you listen to what the Will Ferrells and the Apatows and whoever else, whatever they say about their films, it would seem that for them as directors, producers, actors, etc., it's all about comedy, and it's all about taking things to the biggest extreme that they can get away with at the time. It's all about the shock value. It's all about getting attention. It's all about taking any kind of sacred cow and making a mockery of it, regardless of what that is. And so I think from their point of view, a lot of the time it's kind of an artistic thing. Yeah. But when you look at the amount of films that these guys have done, and you look at the fact that all of these films have the same social themes and memes running throughout them. They all have a very discernible social, political, ethical undertone to them. It's got to make you,
makes you
wonder.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And I would venture to say that anybody who's involved with this many films, who's been involved with so many films for such a long time, and who presents the same social messages over and over and over again in about 1 million different disposable, iterations.
Yeah,
probably knows what they're doing, and probably has if not aspirations in mind that are bigger and deeper than would be expected, then they at least understand. Yeah, they at least understand that they have a set of values that they are trying to get across through comedy.
Yeah. Comedy is very effective at doing this. I think probably the most effective than any other genre, actually, too, and making the audience feel bad about some opinion they previously held. Again, through the Sabido method. They come in thinking like, the homo French that won't bomb anybody and he weren't there in World War II. You come in thinking that, and then you go out in the end like, oh, what? I was so... I was
so wrong. Yeah.
What was I thinking?
Yeah, exactly. You got it. So
insensitive.
This is it. And the way that comedy works is to bring your guard down. When you're, just like any kind of fiction drama, when you're identifying with the characters on an emotional, it's a very basic emotional level, and it's temporary, but it's there, and that's the whole point of performing arts, is to get you.
It's very challenging too. It challenges you because it's like, look, we're laughing at you. We're laughing, and we're not laughing with you. We're laughing at you because this is how you feel. Now, do you want to keep being the object of ridicule and us mocking you, or you want to be socially accepted and part of the group? Because everybody wants to be accepted. Nobody wants to be the outsider, be laughed at. So they're going to do what they can, even if it's like making a decision in their own mind to think a different way so that people don't laugh at them for saying the wrong thing anymore.
Yeah, that's it. And this is how comedy works, by getting you to laugh first, by presenting all of these concepts and topics within their most extreme setting. So when everything's taken to its extreme, it makes everything funny, and everything is a subject of mockery and laughter. So you're prompted to laugh at absolutely everything in the film, regardless of what its kind of moral overtone is. But I think through that process, it brings your guard down, and so the audience is much. If you're not watching objectively or critically, you're much more susceptible to absorbing and being, I guess, kind of nudged along in the direction.
And you're seeing yourself. You're laughing at yourself, and you're. But it's not just laughter; it's judgment. Again, it's a morality play, like you're saying. So it's a judgment of your convictions, and you're like, and that makes you uneasy because it's like, oh, I'm laughing at myself. What side of the joke do I want to be on here? You know what I mean? Yeah.
I'm just gonna read a little excerpt here from an article that I was looking at in regard to the Sabido method, and they talk here about dramatic theory, and it says. It says, dramatic theory describes the structure and effects of 5 genres of theatre: tragedy, comedy, tragic comedy, farce, and melodrama. Among these genres, melodrama presents reality in a slightly exaggerated sense in which the moral universes of good and evil are in discord. So they're talking about melodrama here, but it's pretty much the same thing with comedy. It's everything's exaggerated. The moral kind of polar opposites are in a kind of state of flux there. And it says, Sabido employed Bentley's structure of the melodrama genre as a basis from which to design characters and plots. Good characters in Sabido-style serial dramas accept the proposed social behavior, and evil characters reject it. Plots are then constructed around the relationships between good and evil characters as they move closer or farther away from the proposed social behavior. Their actions encourage the audience to either champion or reject these characters accordingly. And then it goes on to say the tension between the good and evil characters evoked by the melodrama places the audience between the forces of good and evil. But in a twist of the typical audience role in melodrama, where audience members watch or listen to the battle between good and evil, Sabido inserted the audience into the heart of the action by representing audience members through a third group, one that is uncertain about the social behavior in question. I'm not sure, that's perhaps not as relevant to comedy because they're talking about
I would say that the comedy shows the audience as the main characters.
Well, this is it. You are the characters in the comedy. Yeah. So that's I was looking for a little excerpt here on comedy in particular, but that one, it's kind of it's kind of similar, and it's the basic sort of idea of getting people to identify and accept certain social norms and values.
It's
and
definitely playing on basic human psychology.
Yeah,
without a doubt.
It's not even complicated stuff here at all. No. It's very simple. But this is the kind of thing that most people wouldn't think about when watching a comedy.
Yeah, because it's so basic, you don't think about that. It's just like you take everything for granted like that. You're not thinking along those lines.
No, you take everything for granted. It's all harmless. It's all completely non-threatening and innocuous. And this is the assumption when it comes to comedy and popular culture, is that it's just like, it's just a bit of adult humor.
Yeah, and the jokes are so stupid, and you got Will Ferrell running around in his underwear. It's like, what could be serious about this ridiculous thing? Nothing.
Yeah, nothing. Oh, exactly.
But you're wrong.
But you're wrong. Because, I mean, in a scene like that, with Will Ferrell running around in his underpants thinking that he's on fire when he's not.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
It's to be totally objective, what is it? It's the complete denigration of the American male. The guy who's got all the success, the guy who's got the money, got material success, but he's a complete idiot. He's delusional. He's acting like a child. He can't even look after himself. Yeah. So this is a perfect example of how yes, it's kind of stupid and funny in a certain kind of a way, in a really goofy way, but it's also, I would almost say, a little bit subversive in another way. The traditional kind of preconception would be that it's completely harmless, but it's pushing the envelope, and
what's interesting is because just generally speaking, more left-leaning audience or a left-leaning base is just going to warm up to this film because they can clearly see the political statements it's making. And so, that's going to make it work. And then the other audience is going to feel uncomfortable, but they'll come around or whatever. And so I don't know. It's just an interesting thing to look at. And clearly they're making social commentary, political commentary. And beyond that, they're doing all these other things with the morality play aspect to it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you want to leave the review at that, Adam? I think we did pretty good here.
Yeah. I think that's about it, really. I mean, I could go on forever with all these different notes, but I mean, I think people get the general gist of it, and that on the surface of it, it's a dumb, goofy comedy that's all just about slapsticks and people running around in their underpants and extreme characters. Yeah. But if you're really, really objective when you're watching something like this, you are indeed seeing a morality play, because that is the real substance of it, and what you're being presented with is a set of sort of established social norms and expected behaviors, which are then sort of torn down, reversed, inverted, and then sort of taken to another extreme or taken to a different place throughout the course of the film. So like what you were saying before with like the sort of leaning toward the liberal values. I mean, this is kind of what it really is. It's kind of like family values versus liberal values, or materialism versus wholesomeness, or success versus failure, and that's kind of carried through on this stupid, this stupid brand of comedy, which is it's all like sexuality and profanity and toilet humor.
Yeah.
But again, all taken to the extreme. So the things are in there that most people again would probably just laugh at, but are really kind of inappropriate, and probably if you really look at them objectively, not the healthiest things. And this is how these comedies work. So. Maybe the audience members disagree with our analysis.
You know what? Maybe we should do a special episode where we get into the nuances of, like, if not the subgenre, then just comedy itself, because there's so many things I could say just about the audience and how people's ideas and behavior has changed due to the effects of these comedies. I mean, I can see it. I've seen it throughout the years. So I mean, that would be a whole conversation in and of itself.
Yeah, I mean, it would, and it's like you say, we can see how this particular film was designed to reflect and mock certain cultural demographics, and it's supposed to ridicule certain behavior and incite or promote other types of behavior, and came out at a certain point in time with certain things going on politically. So yeah, I would absolutely agree. This is part of one of many films that has done this in terms of pushing new behavioral norms. At key points in time. So yeah, it would definitely be interesting to look at that in the future, and I think we should do that.
Yeah, so if you're not subscribing to Themes and Memes, be sure to do so. go to our website, tmpodcast.com. The podcast is on iTunes, Stitcher Radio. It's on Google Play now. Ooh, exciting.
Ooh.
So all sorts of ways to listen and subscribe, so we hope you are.
Yeah. Well, it's been a good discussion, Aaron, and we will be back again very, very soon with another review this month, because we're going to do two. We're going to do the film Creative Control, which is going to be very interesting on the converging technologies front, so I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, me too. Big time. That'll be good.
Until then.
All right. We'll see you later.
Ta-ta. This podcast was recorded on the 1st of May 2016.